Jonas woke at dawn. As he hopped down from the wagon, he saw the flutter of curtains from the cabin window. A scant minute later, Hannah appeared with a pot of coffee and several slices of warm bread on a tray. She set it on the splitting stump and poured his coffee. "Thank you, Hannah," he said, turning an unsplit log on end for a seat. She set the pot on the ground and went to feeding the chickens and relieving Bess of her milk. By the time she'd finished, Jonas had Ishmael on the treadmill and was leading Isaac from the log pile. The end of the third day found all the lumber milled. The following morning, Jonas propped his ladder on the skeletal building, and when Hannah called at noon, he had half the joists set and pegged. He climbed down and pulled his shirt off the fence on his way to the wash tub on the back porch. Hannah stepped out the door, hands clutching a large towel, and watched him wash. She furled the towel, stepping behind him to wrap it around his shoulders. "You are a well-muscled young man," Jonas Price, and fairer featured. As she dried his back, he straightened with a slight shiver. "Turn, please." He obeyed, and she pressed the towel against his chest. Standing tiptoe, she dried his head and shoulders, then worked down each arm and along his stomach. All the while, her crystal blue eyes scanned his face. Overcome by lust, he wrenched the towel from her grasp and pulled her close. Her garments seemed to fall away under his huge hands, leaving her naked in front of him. Eyes flashing, she removed his trousers. He lifted her and she wrapped her legs around his torso. They stumbled off the porch, then fell back to the floor, Hannah on top. With a powerful thrust, Jonas entered her. She gasped, then laughed and moved with him, covering his face with his shirt. Later, Hannah rolled off, panting, still holding the shirt over his face. He reached for her hand. "I must look at you, Hannah." "No, my Jonas, I will tell you when to look." Her hand, small and hard, remained clamped on the garment until almost a full minute after they'd separated. She removed it. Jonas opened his eyes, propping himself on an elbow to better mark the vision before him. Hannah's body glistened with the sweat of their lovemaking. The high sun lit the beads of perspiration until she appeared to be clothed in diamonds. Her dark hair lay like a halo around her perfect face. Something in her cold, half-closed dark eyes worried him. He wanted to reach out for her, but he fell asleep. Jonas woke curled under the towel. The long shadows cast by the porch pillars startled him to full attention. "I've lost half a day," he said, shaking his head. The door behind him opened and Hannah stepped through. "You've been toiling mightily these few days. You needed rest." She stooped and placed the tray beside him, containing a large bowl of a pungent soup he couldn't identify, half a loaf of bread and a jug of milk. "You've missed the noon meal, but here is your supper." As she turned to leave, Jonas grabbed her ankle, startled at how much thinner it felt than it looked. "I'll be with you tonight?" he asked. "No, Jonas, you're not." She frowned. "I'm sorry. I thought..." He released his hold. "Jonas," she smiled, "I too am wearied from the day. I need my rest, and my bed is small." She stepped through the door. The next morning, he turned to his work with the sun not yet over the horizon and toiled through Hannah's call to the noon meal, ignoring her request for him to rest. By evening, he judged that he almost made up the time. Hannah shooed him out of the cabin as soon as they'd eaten. They coupled several other times through the summer and into the autumn. Each was like the first, sudden, intense, and so exhausting, you slept afterward. Even so, Jonas completed the barn by late October. Perhaps it was the intensity of his toil or the discomfort of the pallet in his wagon. But whatever the cause, he had aches in his bones that he'd never experienced. Late morning on the last day of October, Jonas drove the final peg and climbed off the ladder. He turned to see Hannah walking toward him, wiping her hands on her apron, her long auburn hair blowing in the stiff autumn breeze. "It's done, Hannah." "It is a work to be proud of, Jonas," she smiled. "We'll have a special dinner this evening to celebrate both this and other news I have for you." "What news?" "Tonight, Jonas." She stroked his cheek, turned, and walked quickly back to the house. Jonas sighed. After these many months, she could still stop his heart with a touch. Following the evening meal, they sat near the fire, Jonas feeling the warmth soothe his bones. He turned toward Hannah. "I am a man of great patience, Hannah, but I'm bursting to know of your news." She retrieved a jug from the shelf next to the fireplace, uncorked it, and handed it to him with a broad smile. "Is this your news?" He took a long swallow. "No, Jonas." She watched him take another drink. "You have given me a child." He leapt to his feet. We'll wed," he choked out. "I'll stay." "I know you will, Jonas." She smiled. "Now drink up. You've earned it in so many ways." Huge hands around the jug, Jonas fell back to the chair and took a massive swallow. His eyes blurred and he blinked, trying to clear his vision. As he fought to remain conscious, Hannah shrank in front of him. Her soft features became angular, her skin leathery, her hair white, her eyes stood black.